Nigerian or West African culture, you know that there's different types of fufu soup. But I think just because of the way that I grew up, I know just because of the way that I grew up, and the way that I saw my parents make like fufu soup, um, I just usually call anything that has okra, not anything but okra, dried African leaves, and some type of greens in it. I just call that fufu soup. But I know that there's like different names to it, but I don't call it that. So I'm going to be making my version of fufu soup based off of kind of what I grew up seeing, or what I can remember growing up seeing as a kid. So it's very simple. The only thing that you're taking out of this to make the fufu soup vegan friendly is the meat. And so, yeah, so I'm going to flip my camera around and I'm going to show you all basically what I'm doing. And this is going to be like some real like close-up views, so beware of that. Okay. You need mushrooms. You don't need this big portobello mushroom. You just use any type of mushroom. You need some leaves. So I usually like to use the tama leaves, but I actually ran out of that. And so this soup and the leaves give the soup the different flavors. So I'm actually going to be using this brand. I prefer the Nina International brand, mostly because I used to work for them, and I think they just got some good shit. So, but because this was at the closest store, the store closest to me, I just got this. But I would definitely recommend, not trying to plug them or anything, but definitely would recommend getting the Nina International brand. And what I also get from them is it's a type of fruit. It's a dried fruit, and I think another name for it is Aden or Aden, but the other name for it is precasse. And it's like it adds a nice little aroma to the and a nice little flavor to the soup itself. So this is bitter leaves, dried bitter leaves. And bitter leaves, I mean, they are nutritional. They have a lot of, they're actually very healthy for you. I think the bitter, the better in terms of like health-wise. So I'm going to use those leaves. I'm going to use my kale. I'm going to use my kale. I already cut up my mushrooms. Now I'm going to put my mushrooms to the side. I'm going to put our mushrooms to the side. And I cut them up real thin. As thin as possible. And you can always like, let me cut this up halfway too. Because this is going to really act as your meat in a way. It's going to act as that like additional thing for you to like basically like chew on. So this is that. Little mushrooms. So this is going to be a small soup, so that's why I don't have that many mushrooms. And so now we're going to do this. We're going to cut off the stems of the kale. And then we're going to wash it. I like to keep this part in because I'm just trying to get as much nutrients as possible. So we're going to wash our kale. And while we're doing all of this, we have our water boiling. And while our water is boiling, I'm actually going to use this mushroom to make some fried mushrooms. So I'm going to put the mushrooms in the water, so let this mushrooms cook. then I will bring it over there. I'm gonna try to clean this off and break it apart in the water. And then we're going to do another rinse. Make sure we get everything off of this thing as much as possible. That part off. Okay. Then you cut it up. Just gonna cut up half right now. All right, so we got our greens here. Can you see this? Oh, that kale. Oh, that kale. So I'm gonna add the kale to the water. Always important to clean while you cook. You have less of a mess at the end. And it doesn't look like a fucking war zone, dude. Okay. So I just transferred the water from the small pot to the big pot. And yeah, but the water is still half a liter. What was it? I still put in half a liter of water. So I didn't add any more water, but I will as the stuff starts to cook. So this is a leek. It's very similar to an onion, and if you cut up enough, it can actually make your eyes burn like an onion. So we're gonna cut this up, and we're gonna add that to the soup. Look all filleted. Okay. And we're adding this to the soup to give it flavor, because you all know that. Well, if you don't know, onions give stuff flavor. So I want this to be a flavorful soup. I usually would use a habanero pepper, but I don't have one. But I do have a jalapeno pepper, and they can still be spicy. I mean, I don't need the soup to burn my mouth, but I do want it to have a little kick to it. So, I'm not going to use all of this jalapeno. I don't know if y'all can see. I just use half. And I'm actually going to keep the peppers in it too, to help with the spice. So I'm just gonna cut this up all nice and small. So it's better to, I would prefer to use fresh okra, but they didn't have any in the store. So I want to use the frozen one, but I prefer to use fresh okra. So if you have fresh okra, I recommend that instead of the frozen one. But you know, you make it work. So I'm gonna add this. It's frozen a little bit. I should have thawed out. I thought that was good. Probably add about, you can add as much okra as you want. I like okra. I like how slimy it is. So, help defrost that. I like how slimy it is, so I like to use a lot of okra. But right now I probably got like maybe a cup of okra. But you can use more or less. I might add some more. I actually might just keep this water as well because I think the kale is going to need some more water. So I'm going to add this jalapeno and leek mixture. Alright, I'm almost done. So, and I'm actually going to add a little bit more mushrooms because with mushrooms, you know, they shrivel up. And you don't have to use the big portobello mushroom. You can use whatever mushroom you actually like. And so I'm going to add that in. And I'm going to add in the okra in the water with the okra. And then the bitter leaves. What I've always seen people do is crush up the leaves. So just crush it up like crumbs. I don't think I'm going to use all these bitter leaves. But again, the leaves give the different soups their different flavors. So let me just add a little bit more water. Not too much though. And then because we're not using meat, we need something that's gonna, we need to add some type of oil to it. So I'm adding grapeseed oil, as you all can see, grapeseed oil. And I usually eyeball it. But I will say it's about maybe like 3 tablespoons. And then we stir and we let it sit. Now I might have to add just a little bit more water, but I add water carefully, only because I don't want the soup to be too watery. Oh, I forgot the important thing, the seasoning. Oh my goodness. All right, so I forgot to show you all the seasons that I add. I add salt. And again, I eyeball a lot of things. So I would say that's like 1 tablespoon. I add chili powder. I know some people might find that weird, but it actually don't taste too bad. And it helps with the color, because, yeah. And I add, this is cumin, even though the thing says cayenne pepper. The top is actually cumin. Okay. And then you just stir that up. And the salt, you can obviously add more as you go. But this is it. This is how I make my fufu soup. A vegan-friendly fufu soup. All right, we'll let that cook. And this was the original pot it was in, so I transferred it over to this big pot. Top on and let it cook. I realized that while trying to make the fufu soup, I forgot to show you all how to even make fufu. So, as you saw in the fufu soup making video, I don't use a lot of ingredients. I keep it pretty simple. And yeah, so with the fufu, with the actual fufu itself, I don't know how to really describe fufu, but it's just basically water and flour. So usually fufu is made out of cassava, and the cassava is, I think it's grinded up and referred to, and when it's grinded up, it's referred to as gari. I don't know the history of fufu. I just eat it. So growing up, we used gari, which is spelled G-A-R-I, and we used gari to make the actual fufu. As I gotten older, and it was like kind of hard for me to like find gari, like in college, and then moving to a new area like the DMV at the time. I didn't really know like where to spot an African store. Like I was just trying to figure out how the buses work. I don't know in which neighborhoods I should not be going into. I did not know anything about like where to find an African store at. So what I started to use for the longest was oat flour. And what I would do is I would go to the store, get some oats, like the same oats that you would use to make oatmeal with, and I would blend it until it was in powder form, which by blending it turns into oat flour, and I would just use that to make oat fufu. But I recently had an experience, because fufu is my favorite dish. I recently had an experience in which I ate too much oat flour, and because it is oats, if you eat too much oatmeal or oats or whatever, and you don't properly hydrate, you will get constipated. I know, TMI, but that is what happened. And so I was like, bruh, I'm not using oat flour no more. And so I was searching for this, but I didn't really see anybody do it. But I was like, why don't I use spelt flour? So I'm going to be using spelt flour, and I tried this yesterday, and it actually came out pretty good. So I did the spelt flour. So I'm just going to show you all how I make fufu with spelt flour. Again, you can make fufu basically out of any flour, but depending on the type of flour, you're going to have to you're going to have to attend to it a little bit differently in terms of like how you mold it. So you can make fufu, again, out of gari, which is made from cassava. You can make fufu out of oat flour. You can make fufu out of plantain flour. I think you can make it out of coconut flour, but I can't remember. I know you can use plantain flour, and I think plantain is a little sweet. That's why I don't like to use it. Just kind of throws me off. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put on the stove. And the thing about making fufu is the same thing about making fufu soup, is that you have to be careful about how much water you put in. Always start off little and then build up. So that's what we're going to do. Yes, I'm going to put water in this pan. This will be enough. Depending on how much water you use, it will depend on how much flour you use, which will determine the size of your fufu. Because we don't have that much fufu soup left, I really like fufu. We don't need that much. We don't need to make that much fufu. So the stove is already on. Let me put it this way. Stove is already on. So I'm gonna turn my camera down so you all can see exactly what I'm doing. Okay, so I just put a half a liter of water, or close to a half a liter of water, in this small pot. And I'm gonna bring it, and you bring it to a boil. And you bring it to a boil, and when it's boiling and when it's bubbling, you're gonna add the spelt flour. And another important thing that you need is a wooden spoon. It makes miracles. It makes miracles. No, so the wooden spoon is very important because you're gonna need something you're gonna mold it. That's the whole purpose. You're molding this thing into a ball. Just mold it, mold it, mold it. So to actually make the fufu itself is about, I'll say 10 minutes. That's for the water to boil, and then once the water starts boiling, to actually do the molding, about 10 minutes. To make the fufu soup, because we're not using any meat, and usually if you're going to use meat to make fufu soup, you need to cook the meat, if the meat isn't already cooked. So with that, it probably takes, I'll say with chopping and with the actual cooking itself, it'll probably take you like 30 to 45 minutes. And 20 of those minutes is just used just to boil. The other is just for chopping stuff up. So the water is boiling. It's boiling. And so then when it's when it's boiled up, then we'll add the spelt flour. And again, so I'm using spelt flour as more so a healthy alternative. Depending on the type of vegan you are, you know, you probably don't mind using oat flour and stuff like that. But if you are trying to be like, not necessarily more health conscious, but if you want a meal, traditional Nigerian meal that kind of emulates how you regularly eat, because I don't eat with oats a lot. I don't eat oatmeal. I actually stopped eating oatmeal for like the past, I think, 2.5 years, 1.5 to 2 years. So to make fufu and then to use oat flour, it just didn't work. So like I just didn't really like it so much. So I'm just trying to do things that's more aligned with like kind of the everyday things that I eat. This camera. All right. So the water is boiling. If this is going to be your first time, it's probably best for you to put the flour in like a cup, and then let me put the water down because it's really going. To put the flour in a cup and just to shake and pour like that. But I'm not about to do that. Ooh, this water is hot. Okay. So as you all know from making the fufu, I don't measure. So this right here is probably like a cup of fufu, and I'm moving it around, trying to get the water between all those crevices, so that everything is like cooked properly. And that's why you need the wooden spoon. Let me hold it like this. Now I'm going to add some more fufu to this. And you put the fire down if it's too hot or too high. And that's why I said I think I added too much water. So you want the fufu you need to watch it, but you're going to be molding it. That's why you need the wooden spoon. So you basically are just molding it until you can get it into like a solid form, as well as for all the white parts to be out. Now, making fufu is an art form. So, and I'm not the best at it. So what I'm going to do is just add, so it's still kind of sticky. It's very sticky, and there's still some flour that hasn't been fully dissolved yet. So I'm just going to add a little bit of water to help with the molding. We're going to transfer this into that. And transfer this into that. And you can put water on your hands to help mold it some more. Or you can just shake it to roll it. Then you can put some water on your hands to put some water on your hands to help mold it some more. Now the mistake I made with this fufu is that I didn't let the flour cook for that long. So as a warning, let the flour cook longer so you get less lumps. Okay, this is the spelt fufu. So you can leave this out to sit. If you're greedy like me, you can put it in the freezer. If you're greedy like me, you can put it in the freezer for it to cool down faster. And you just eat. So the soup that we have left, which you can't really see, we're going to transfer that into a bowl. Just enough. So this is the final product. Look how cute they are together. So this is the fufu soup made with bitter leaves. And it has mushrooms and kale and jalapeno. Mushroom, kale, jalapeno, okra, leeks. There was no palm oil used in this. Only grapeseed oil. And I don't know if y'all could, I don't know if I get real close up, but you can see the oil. And then the fufu itself was made out of spelt flour. And again, this wasn't the best fufu because I didn't make it the best way because you can still see lumps in it. But this is a vegan version of a healthy meal that's somewhat similar to like a Dr. Sebi vegan diet. So, yep. But that's about it, and that concludes this video. My mouth is already starting to water. My mouth is already starting to water, just look at it. But I'm going to contain myself because it's kind of early to be eating fufu, even though I enjoy eating fufu for breakfast. That's how much I like it. So, but yeah, and then again with the fufu soup, I added my seasonings to it. So this has no palm oil, no meat. The flour, the fufu itself is made from spelt flour. I feel like this is probably the healthiest version of a fufu soup that can be made. No artificial vegan meat, no tofu, no seitan, and I never tried tofu, but I've tried seitan. Do not like it. It's just better with just to keep it simple with just vegetables. And I feel like it's a pretty good soup. And the flavor of this soup has the bitter leaves flavor. So it's kind of somewhat bitter. But it's okay. It's cool. But yeah, and if you want to change the flavor of it, you can always just change it basically with the different leaves that you choose. But all right, y'all. See y'all next time. Bye.